People say a wedding is the happiest day of your life, but no one tells you it can also be the day when the truth finally refuses to stay hidden. And on the day I wore white, I stopped protecting the one person who had been quietly poisoning my life for years, because this story didn't start at the altar. It started in my childhood with the role I was forced to play from the moment my younger brother Ethan was born, 4 years after me, as the miracle son my parents had waited for, the child who was protected, excused, and prioritized while I was praised for being strong, which was just another way of saying quiet, adaptable, and endlessly responsible. Because when Ethan cried, the house stopped, and when I cried, I was told to calm down. When he broke my things, it was my fault for leaving them out. When he embarrassed me, I was too sensitive, and when he crossed the line quietly moved. And I learned to survive by swallowing discomfort without making noise, while Ethan learned something far more dangerous, that charm erased consequences. And by high school he had perfected the smile, the joking tone, the subtle cruelty that could always be dismissed as humor. And every time I protested, my parents backed him up in that quiet, devastating way that teaches you exactly where you stand. So I left for college as soon as I could, believing distance would fix things, believing adulthood would smooth the edges. But while I grew up, Ethan only grew bolder, bouncing between plans that never stuck. Never his fault, always someone else's. And somehow I was always expected to help because I was stable, reliable, capable, the one who could handle it. A word that followed me like a burden into adulthood until I met Daniel, the first person who noticed how I apologized even when I wasn't wrong, how my body tensed when my phone buzzed with messages from home, how I laughed off comments that clearly hurt me, and when he told me I didn't owe them my peace, I wanted to believe him, but family has a way of convincing you that endurance is love. So when Daniel proposed quietly and intentionally, and I said yes, I believed the worst was behind me, but what I didn't understand was that Ethan wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of losing control over me. And the closer the wedding got, the more he hovered, inserting himself into planning, offering opinions no one asked for, making comments just sharp enough to sting, turning childhood memories into stories where he was charming and I was difficult. And at the rehearsal dinner when he toasted me as the woman who always thinks she knows best, and my parents stayed silent, something in me cracked. And on the morning of my wedding, everything looked perfect, but my body wouldn't relax. Because I felt the same quiet alarm I'd felt my entire life right before Ethan crossed the line and no one stopped him. And when he showed up unannounced in the bridal suite and poured champagne for me, himself, my discomfort deepened, because throughout the ceremony and reception he stayed too close, volunteered to keep my glass full, and every time he handed it to me, my stomach tightened. And when I saw him slip something into his pocket and laughed it off as my imagination, the word again echoed too loudly in my mind, until my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Laura that simply said, "Don't drink, watch him." And standing there in my white dress, I finally allowed myself to think the unthinkable, that this wasn't control or jealousy anymore, it was intent. And I knew that if I accused him, I would be blamed. If I refused the drink, I would be dramatic. If I panicked, I would lose. So I waited, and when his attention shifted for just a moment, I slid the glasses across the table, slow and silent, not lifting them, just switching positions. And when Ethan returned and raised the glass meant for me and asked if I was ready, I smiled and said, "Whenever you are." And for the first time in my life, I wasn't protecting him, I was choosing myself. And when he stood to toast me, smiling confidently, playing the role everyone loved, mocking me lightly while the room laughed, he drank deeply. And at first nothing happened. Then his movements slowed, his smile faltered, his confidence strained, and when he tried to stand again, his balance betrayed him, drawing attention he couldn't charm away, until he collapsed into the wedding cake in front of 200 guests, frosting smeared across his suit, confusion replacing arrogance. And when he whispered into the fallen microphone that this wasn't supposed to happen, not this glass, the truth finally broke free. And I stood calmly and said, "For my glass," and Laura raised her phone with the recording, and for the first time, the consequences weren't mine to absorb, because as paramedics arrived and my parents demanded explanations, I didn't scream, I didn't accuse, I didn't save him. I simply told the truth and let it stand on its own. And when Ethan weakly told me I didn't have to let this happen, answered that I didn't let it happen, I stopped protecting it. And even as my parents tried to blame me for not stopping him, I realized that what happened didn't ruin my wedding or destroy my family, it revealed them. And the reception continued, quieter but honest. And months later, my life is safer, calmer, built on boundaries instead of endurance. Because I didn't lose my brother that day, I lost the role I was forced to play my entire life, and what I gained was clarity, peace, and the freedom to finally choose myself without apology.